Hello everyone, my name is Kaisa Spilling and I come from Forum Virium Helsinki. I call myself an innovation accelerator and work with the innovation ecosystems and living lab activities related to sustainable future and have had Helsinki as my sandbox for the last 9 years. Today I'll be talking about districts as urban labs for a sustainable future. First, a couple of words about Forum Virium Helsinki. We are an innovation company owned by the City of Helsinki. And what we do is really co-creating urban futures together, of course, the city, companies, the scientific community, and not the least with the residents. We are a non-profit and a project organization. And our funding comes from the city, but also from EU projects. And currently we are running about 30 different innovation projects with national and international partners, mostly from EU. And at the moment we are employing about 60 experts working in the different projects. So we really want to help the city to utilize new technologies and digitalization, and also, on the other hand, to help the companies to use Helsinki as a platform for development. And well, the city has a vision to make Helsinki the most functional city in the world. So what we mean with functional is that there are quality services, but also good quality of life for the residents. And our aim is to help the City of Helsinki to reach that goal. The City of Helsinki also has ambitious carbon neutrality goals, as do all cities at the moment. And that can also be seen in all our project portfolio. So we really try to help the city to use digitalization in order to make more sustainable services and really harness the innovation capabilities of the urban community to explore and make those happen. Well, taking you to the map so that we can get to the districts. If we think about Helsinki, it is a city with about 650,000 inhabitants and growing all the time at a fast pace. The area construction is most active in the districts like Kruunuvuorenranta, Kalasatama, Pasila, and Jätkäsaari. The area construction sites are also relevant for the city because the city has also decided that those will be used as innovation platforms for new sustainable solutions. Forum Virium Helsinki is especially active in 2 of those districts. First of all, we work with Jätkäsaari, serving as the smart mobility lab, and with Kalasatama, the model area for smart city development. A couple of words about Jätkäsaari first. So Jätkäsaari, first of all, is an old port, and it's been transformed to homes for about 18,000 residents by 2025. Today there's about 8,500 inhabitants living there. And of course, Jätkäsaari has the port, and Helsinki is actually a very busy passenger port in Finland, and there's a very extensive ferry traffic to Jätkäsaari harbour with about 8 million passengers per year. And that also makes the district to suffer from traffic peaks from the port. But we try to help the district also to solve those problems, and Jätkäsaari is offering a living lab and an urban test bed for smart mobility development, focusing on innovative mobility solutions for traffic safety and using mobility data and trying really also to affect to people and behavior change related to smart mobility. Then when we look into smart Kalasatama, it's a bit a different area, a bit newer than Kalasatama. Today there's about 5,000 people living there, and by 2040 the projected number will be 25,000 inhabitants and about 10,000 jobs. It's quite near to the center, about 6 minutes by metro, and also reached from both the western side of the metropolitan area as well as the eastern side by metro, so really kind of basically in the center. If we look at Kalasatama and the plans, it has some very specific features. There's a shopping center ready center already there from 2018, I mean. And the first high-rise building of the planned 8 ones is now ready and already with residents on board since the beginning of this year. We will see what happens with the next high-rise buildings and how they will transform living in this district. Smart Kalasatama, like I said, is the model area for smart city development and is really an urban lab for sustainable everyday. So Forum Virium Helsinki has been orchestrating the innovation platform activities since 2013, quite many years already. We've had projects and piloting programs running since and an active innovation ecosystem. Today, we also have an urban lab space serving both the ecosystem as well as the resident, and do work all the time closely with residents. And that is something interesting for both companies, for the city, who are eager to get insights about smart living and everyday. How is then smart, sustainable living in Kalasatama? Well, first of all, in a smart district, so there is smart infrastructure. There is the smart grid, the energy grid that enables, for example, that energy data and water consumption data is available for all residents real time. And actually the housing buildings do need to provide that data for the residents. Smart infrastructure also is visible in the building blocks that have the vacuum-based waste collection system, also providing data as each apartment has their own tag in order to open those bins. And other things not only related to infrastructure, so we can see that there's a lot related to kind of sharing economy services visible in Kalasatama, and actually also kind of the city can also affect sharing economy to services to be born, because all the housing buildings have smart locking systems, are required to have that. So that enables that people can use, for example, free spaces when they're not in use, such as saunas or community spaces within buildings. One of the buildings is also a community-based senior building that has the key idea that people can, for example, have smaller apartments when in the housing building there are plenty of common spaces, such as saunas, gyms, and, for example, a common dining room where dinner is served every day. That's also a part of making everyday habits and changing everyday habits of the residents. Well, if we talk about smart city development, so that's often featured by like big infrastructure projects, cities and large players. We also wanted to make possible for smaller players to participate and also find easy ways for the citizens to be engaged. We created something called the Agile piloting program that provides co-creation and experimentation of early prototypes in real-life environment. How that really works is that we've been running thematic piloting programs where we've been procuring from 3 to 5 pilots from startups and SMEs and running them during a period of 6 months. Fairly little money, but still something to help the small players to put their energy into the piloting period. And we've really seen that this kind of process, it co-creates value for all stakeholders. So we really bring the city, the companies, citizens, but also wider scientific community to co-create during the pilots. It also offers market references for the companies and interesting possibilities for the citizens to really understand what smart city development is all about, what kind of services could there be. And also then the city can learn about the future use cases, maybe learn something that they can use in the future procurement processes, or even take a new solution into use. The process is really about co-creating value, and from setting the focus together with the key stakeholders to an open call and engage startups and SMEs to really experiment with the city as an urban lab together with the ecosystem. So it has proven to be a valuable process for all parties engaged. And in Smart Kalastama, we've been running about 20 pilots until now, and the process has been taken up by the City of Helsinki with more than 50 pilots run today. Also, the 6-pack cities in Finland, meaning the 6 biggest cities, have been interested and taken up the process also in their own activities, with over 100 pilots run in Finland. And actually, just yesterday received information that the first pilots in Stavanger city in Norway have just kicked off. So this process has also been proven to be interesting and taken up by already the first Nordic city, and the Nordic city community in general are interested to explore this further. How can the city then serve as a platform for pilots and services? So first of all, there is the smart infra that can be used as a basis for new pilots. There are the building blocks and residents that are kind of natural platform for piloting. In districts like Kalasatama and Jätkäsaari, there's also city services. In Kalasatama, there's of course the Health and Wellbeing Center that has been our partner in many of the pilots, but also the school and pupils and teachers that provide also interesting angles for example, piloting things related to smart solutions and sustainability and combining with teaching. And then there is the smart city infra that provides data that can be used as a fuel for new solutions and innovations. I will be giving now 3 perspectives on how to engage the urban community within piloting of smart solutions. First of all, how to engage residents. Thereafter, on how to engage the city officials and experts, and then how to engage the wider ecosystem. Let's have a look at that. One example that has been a lot up in the discussions earlier today has been changing consumer behavior. In one of the pilots, we had the natural step with their carbon home, kotihiili in Finnish, pilot, where we explored how do the daily CO2 emissions of households divide. It was an interesting pilot because for the first time, the real-time energy data coming from the blocks was used in a third-party service. So the pilot was really looking into energy consumption or energy consumption of the households, of food consumption and mobility. For the food consumption part, it really demanded some extra work from the residents themselves, who were kind of following their daily household routines for about a period of 3 weeks. But that's also a good example of a service and a pilot where the citizens really needed to engage themselves and work, but it really shows that people are interested in this kind of actions. And it's really important also to make the carbon neutrality footprint, or the carbon footprint, visible for the residents. Another example is about green infra. In 2017, during our Smart and Clean piloting round, we had the company called InnoGreen that was experimenting a modular rain garden system on the schoolyard of Kalasatama. So it was tackling with rainwater, but also bringing greenness for the school children. And they planned how to use this green wall also within the teaching, for example, exploring insects and biodiversity within the classes. Last year, we continued work with InnoGreen and some other companies in a wider project called Virtual Verdure, where already the city planners and other experts collaborated within the theme and really sought how to use also digital tools for helping the city to plan more greener infra within the district. And actually, these months we are just starting a new international project called Be Green that focuses on the green infrastructure and furthermore in the digital tools supporting city planning, and can then offer Kalasatama as a lab for, again, new solutions and wider potential for companies to test their solutions within the district under construction. Well, then that leaves us to engaging the ecosystem. And one very recent project called Mission Zero Footprint is really co-creating with the wider food service ecosystem. And it's about how to measure the carbon footprint within restaurants, and then how to bring that data to support the consumer choices. We've seen that, yes, people do want to make good choices, but it has to be made easy for them. And that demands that you have to get some data out of it. But first of all, this has been a really interesting project, especially now during the very special times this spring, when the restaurant sector has been having really hard time. So this project is really about co-creating together with the restaurant sector. We've been happy to have over 200 participants participating to the different workshops and events we've been hosting. And furthermore, so we try to really serve the industry instead of kind of coming top down and bringing them services that they should use, rather asking them what might help them. And of course, Kalasatama, that has, for example, the old abattoir district, Teurastamo, and then the Ready Center are serving as base labs for piloting then those tools and services. And we really see that carbon neutrality can be a competitive advantage for the restaurant sector. And very soon, that means September 2020, we'll be having an open call for digital tools and solutions to measure carbon footprint and related things like food waste and energy efficiency within the restaurants. So hoping to give more information on that during the fall. yes, pilots might be very small, but we also do think then how to scale up and try to kind of build this up during the process. And what does scaling up mean then? So we think that scaling up of pilots can be many things. It can be the reuse of models and best practices that are born in the processes, like, for example, the agile piloting process itself, but also models that are being built up during the process. Then another angle is that the results of the pilots can be translated to recommendations for the city. So, for example, when we've been testing things related to flexible use of spaces, the idea itself has been taken up by the city that demands smart locking systems from all construction companies and housing companies in the districts. Then another thing is that when you do a co-creative process, the pilots and the learnings, they scale up in new ecosystems and new partnerships. The more engaged the partners are, the easier it is then to scale up the learnings. So that's also something we have learned and try to kind of make the process as make the partners to engage in all possible ways. Actually, that was all from me this time, and I say thank you and would be very happy to answer to some questions, if any. I'll move back to the space if I can see your questions. Okay, yes, there's one from Maria. Okay, the availability of energy consumption data. So of course the data it's my data, so it's owned by the housing companies. When we've been doing pilots with the data, so what we have been doing, we've been also asking permission from the consumers, from the residents to use that data. So today there's no kind of service yet that would kind of do that for us, but maybe in the future. And actually, we hope to see new solutions that would really kind of use the real-time data. And of course, then that would enable that there would be kind of a data permission layer that would somehow take care of asking permissions from the residents. And thanks, Emma. Great to hear about that you live in Jätkäsaari and have been experiencing the pilots. I actually wanted to bring one example from Jätkäsaari, but then realized that have no time for that today, maybe the next time. Do we still have some time? I can also actually use the next slide in order to show you my favorite example from Jätkäsaari. So one possible or one pilot where we've been really exploring sustainable mobility in Jätkäsaari is the ride sharing to football juniors. So that's really kind of a resident initiated pilot, because all parents know how hard it is to kind of tackle with taking their kids to training. But also many people, when they move to Jätkäsaari or Kalastama, they also choose not to have a car. So therefore, this kind of service, it first of all saves time from the parents, but also supports a carless every day. So the Jätkäsaari school there's been a transportation from Jätkäsaari school to the training place for the Pallopojat team. And it's also been very good for the team because they've been able to have the trainings earlier time or at an earlier time slot that's also less expensive for then the football club. just one example how the residents also can kind of affect what kind of pilots are being run within the district, and that we really try to take the residents with us to select and hear what's important for them. Oh, Maria, another question. We have seen that data actually does change what people do, not only us, but been following quite a lot of the discussion on how actually visualizing data can then affect to people's behavior. And actually just by talking with several companies who have been kind of doing those applications for following, for example, energy data. So they've really reported that the housing buildings where energy consumption is visible, so the people are also changing their habits and really kind of, for example, starting to think, is there a time that is, for example, doing their laundry at those hours where energy is more low cost, or just kind of making small changes in their behavior that can have effect. But also then money, like I said, is also an issue. So, for example, just that they can see that, okay, this is a peak hour, I'd rather do the laundry at an hour when the energy costs are lower. So that's also good incentive for consumers. And many of this kind of examples I hope to see, for example, within the Mission Zero footprint, when we also try to kind of change how the restaurants are running their daily activities, but that's about to come then next year. I think we're about done with the time. So if there's no other questions, so I will just say thank you. This has been a great experience exploring also this hopping environment for presentation. Thank you.